Finding out you have type 1 diabetes can be a huge shock. The time from feeling unwell to diagnosis is often extremely quick, and as often no cause can be found, this can leave you feeling confused. I'd like you to meet some ordinary people who prove that a life with diabetes can still be the life you want.
I was 10 years old when I first found out I had diabetes. My very first reaction was it was actually a short thing, I'd get over it, but when I went to the hospital and it got all serious, I started to realise that this is going to be with me for the rest of my life, and that's when I sort of struggled with acceptance.
It probably took about 2 years to come to terms with it because diabetes tended to dominate our lives, and I didn't see Max as just Max, I saw Max with diabetes.
I first found out I had type 1 diabetes 10 years ago in the 7th week of my pregnancy. I was 26 years old. My main concern at that point was if my pregnancy would continue and the baby would be all right.
Taylor was diagnosed when she was 10 months old. Both my husband and I were shocked. We have no family history of type 1 diabetes. She had been sick a couple of days beforehand, just lethargic. She was still being breastfed, hadn't even started eating real food. So it sort of blindsided us that we didn't know how this could happen when we are relatively healthy, and she was so young.
I think there's a natural grief pattern there, from crisis of diagnosis right through to integrating diabetes into our lives. It took time, and it's a natural process, and there were hard times in there. But the other thing too, another challenge is to actually stay strong for Max's sake, because any anxiety that I would have showed, or sadness or grief, would have flowed onto him. So we carried on as much as we could without Max knowing a lot of that.
Being pregnant and being diabetic can be hard work because you like to keep your sugar levels within normal limits, and you can get a little bit paranoid if they get a little bit high, but you've got the support of your endocrinologist and your diabetes educator.
When you have a child that's a diabetic who can't actually talk and tell you when they're either feeling really bad because they're too high or they're feeling bad because they're too low, we had to do all the thinking for Taylor. We had to do her bloods when she was first diagnosed. We were doing her bloods every hour, on the hour, 24 hours a day. When we came home from hospital, we were every 2 hours, she had bloods done for the first 2 years of her life. So my husband and I have very well-worn bags under our eyes from lack of sleep.
There's been a lot of challenges with having a diabetic in the family. I think the biggest one initially was having to be organised when I'm naturally a very disorganised person, so that's been a huge struggle. Another challenge with Max's diagnosis was actually coming to terms emotionally with Max having diabetes, and a grief and loss reaction of not being able to protect my child from all harm, and also probably a grief reaction from a life we had previously that was quite spontaneous and very healthy, and we were able to do what we wanted.
My biggest challenge as a diabetic was probably going on school camps or Duke of Edinburgh camps where I'm eating out of ration packs for a week and having to try and manage diabetes with that, and camping out in the wilderness where miles from help. Well, when I go on these camps, I try and prepare as best I can. If that means packing extra kilograms worth of jelly beans or snack foods, high carbohydrate foods, and that's what I have to do, and that's generally what I do. But I also make sure that the person in charge, whether it be a teacher or a camp leader, has jelly beans as well, and they know the situation that I'm a diabetic, and they'll often carry a glycogen pen in case for emergencies.
For me, for school camps has been a huge challenge, because when they're at a friend's place there's a little bit more of a control. The adults are going to be, or the parents are going to be watching out for Max, but it's a whole new ball game when they go away on school camps, and I don't sleep basically for 4 or 5 nights, and I can't wait till Max gets back and I can, find out how he's gone.
I think diabetes did make me more determined to go out and do these camps. I think I would have done them anyway, but having diabetes made me want to show myself that I can go out there and do it with the added task of being a diabetic.
Because Max is so sporty and does play a lot of cricket, whenever I went to a cricket game, I didn't actually see or look at Max playing cricket. All I could think about was, when was the last time he ate? How much insulin did he have this morning? Does he need jelly beans? And it completely dominated unfortunately, my enjoyment of watching my son play sport. But eventually, I mean, that wore away, and I've come to terms with that. But that was a huge challenge as well, because you see everything through diabetic eyes, really.
I went through a stage for about 3 years where I was diagnosed with having brittle diabetes. I could eat the same thing every day, and my levels could just be absolutely haywire. I could have really highs and really lows, and that was really hard to come to terms with. I dealt with that challenge by contacting the educator who has looked after me at the hospital since I was diagnosed with diabetes, and she put me on a program that was running at the hospital on a new insulin called Lantus, and it has helped. My levels have been really good.
It's the unknown of a toddler. It's we did things like tried to limit what she did in a day and fed her exactly the same food every day to try and see if we could get a rhyme or reason behind what her numbers were. And we could feed her the same things and do exactly the same activity every day, and the numbers never made sense. So we sort of threw our hands up in the air and decided not to try and limit what she does. And a toddler runs around. We just have to be very mindful of how much running she does and how much food she intakes.
The demands on me is quite high in my household. My kids range from 12 to 2, so it's hard, but I wouldn't have it any other way because I like to keep busy, and if I wasn't diabetic, I'm sure that I'd be probably the same. But I am diabetic, and diabetes is just like another child. I've got to make sure that's okay, like my kids are okay. So it is part of my life, and yeah, I get on with it.
How we cope with birthday parties is difficult. Taylor does still have anywhere between 6 and 8 needles a day of insulin, so we can sometimes let her just go because we know that the party will cover over a lunch period, so that we just do her bloods before they start to eat. We can let her free graze within reason, of course. She can't sit down and eat a dozen cupcakes, but we'll let her have one, and then we can try and just give her a little bit extra insulin to cope so that she feels like she's part of the group and her friends.
Having type 1 diabetes also means learning to manage low blood sugar levels, or hypos, from time to time. Recent developments with insulins have certainly helped to reduce the frequency of hypos in many people, but it is still important to be prepared with rapid-acting carbohydrates close by, and certainly to be aware of your hypo early warning signs.
My family and my children are wonderful. They are very knowledgeable about type 1 diabetes. They are fantastic when they think that I'm having a little bit of a turn or a little bit of a hypo. They'll be the first ones to say, "Hey, Mandy, go and have a drink of apple juice," or "Are you all right?" or "Should you test your sugars?" So they're all aware of it.
In Taylor's hypo kit for school, we have a tin of fruit salad so that, if she falls very low very quickly, they've got something that's quick acting carbohydrate. We also have some long acting, so we can't place a piece of bread or something like that, which we would normally have at home. We have biscuits, Scotch finger biscuits or Jats, or something that has some longevity that we can keep and store in airtight bags. But it's always there. We replenish it once a fortnight just to make sure if the school uses any of it that night, we'll make sure it's replaced so that they've got something for her. We're lucky that the school Taylor will go to is all the way to year 12, so these girls are going to be as much support for her and be able to keep a watch on her as well. So we went in very early and read books and told them about why Taylor needs needles so that there's no secrets. So yeah, we've tried to involve the school and the class as much as possible. So in later life, we're hoping that there'll be no differentiation about Taylor being different.
Fit a pack of jelly beans in my pocket. That's generally all I need. That's sort of routine for me now if I'm going out. I know most people take wallet and phone, I take wallet phone, insulin pen, jelly beans.
The changes over the past 10 years with the new insulins that are out on the market has made me feel quite normal in respect to having diabetes. It's allowed me to enjoy life more.
And I think once the 24-hour insulin was introduced, it just opened up a different world and a lot more freedom. Max could never sleep in. That was one of the biggest problems that we had, actually, because I had to wake him very early every morning, and regardless of how he felt, and take his blood sugar level, or he would do it himself. And I felt terrible for a teenager who couldn't get their, they do like to sleep, so he couldn't get his sleep-ins. And I also couldn't get to sleep in, so we for many years went on very little sleep.
I guess the feeling when I wake up in the morning feeling good and ready to start the day is such a better feeling than struggling to get out of bed, struggling to make breakfast, not wanting to eat breakfast because you don't feel like eating breakfast, and just having that whole freedom to be able to just get up, eat, or do whatever. If you don't feel like eating, you don't eat. That's improved my life 110%.
Prior to Max starting on the 24-hour insulin Lantus, we did have a difficult period where Max was becoming very tired and he was wearying of the amount of injections he was having, and we couldn't, actually the other thing, we couldn't get his readings down in the mornings, and I would have to wake him up very early in the morning, and he did go through a stage where he would say, I hate diabetes, and I would agree with him, and but we managed, once he was on the 24-hour insulin, things opened up for him and there was a lot more freedom. He could sleep in, he could eat, choose when he could eat. It changed. A lot of that burden that Max, I felt that Max was carrying, was lifted, or we were carrying was lifted.
Being on Lantus, there's definitely a lot more flexibility. If I wake up in the morning and don't feel like having breakfast, I won't have breakfast. Generally saying, I pretty much always do, but if I don't feel like it, I don't have to have it, because I know that the Lantus is in my system for 24 hours, and I then could be out at a park and take morning tea with me, and that's when I'll have my short-acting insulin, because I know the Lantus is still in my system and it's keeping my sugars at a great level. When I had brittle diabetes and my sugar levels were all over the place, it was actually quite depressing, because I would pretty much eat the same thing day in and day out, and I was getting absolutely no consistency with it. It was making me feel terrible. So going on to the Lantus, and the control of my diabetes levels has stabilised so much, it just makes me feel alive again. It actually made me, I said to my husband, it actually makes me feel like I don't have diabetes. It made me feel so much better.
As you can see, living with diabetes does get easier. A positive attitude is vital, as is recognising that you're not alone, but have the support of family and friends and the expert guidance of your healthcare team to call upon.
When Max was first diagnosed, we were in contact with the hospital and the dietitians and the nurses and the specialists, you know, very regularly. But as Max has grown older and more independent and has a lot more of an understanding of diabetes, we've dropped that back bit by bit. So we're now seeing a specialist once every 3 months, and generally either myself or his dad will take him on his visit. But he had actually his very first time on his own, took a train into the hospital and saw the specialist all on his own, and that was, you know, a step in towards independence.
We do a lot of her support via the phone. We are lucky, we're only 15 minutes away from the hospital, so it's that short dash if we need to, but we try. It's more peaceful for her to be at home than it is to be in hospital, so you know, you just have to cope. There is no two ways about it. There's no need for us to fall down around it in tears. She's going to have a lifetime of this, so we have to stay as positive and as proactive as we possibly can as a family.
The healthcare team that I see throughout the year would be endocrinologist, the fantastic diabetes education team, and my local GP, who will see me on a regular basis and do my 3 monthly blood sugar tests and HbA1c, and it's fantastic to know that you've got that support out there.
The 3 monthly reading that we have done with the specialist just gives us reassurance that we've got everything's working and that we're doing the right things. And the specialist, I mean, he's a very caring man. He's very, he gives us a lot of reassurance that that we're all doing the right thing. And for Max too, to relate to him that he's doing well with his diabetes. So it's I find it a very positive thing, and I encourage Max to go, and I make the appointments. So yeah, it's been a really good support. And I know that's difficult when you have children, but to make it as normal and as much as part of your life as you're able to. We still go on a lot of holidays together. We take long car trips. We stay at farms and resorts and all sorts of places. And Max is just one of the family, one of the kids.
Try and buddy up with someone that lives locally and close. We were very fortunate. We're part of a mentoring program that we actually had a little girl that was diagnosed 2 doors down from our house. So within the first week of her coming home from hospital, both my husband and I were a resource for that family on just the basics of, you know, what's the carb count, you know, what food works, how easy is it to work out how many tiny teddies and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, learning from another parent is a good thing.
I believe keeping the best possible control with having type 1 diabetes is exercise, positive outlook, and family support. Like I said before, I try and walk every day, and I think that has great control over my sugar levels, and I don't try and miss out on having the occasional piece of cake or things like that. Life's too short, so you can plan around it.
I think what's been really helpful for Max too is that we generally do not ever argue about diabetes. So even though I might disagree with what Max is doing or might have a different opinion about something, it's always done in a very mature way so that Max isn't made to feel that it's something that we're going to argue about or he's going to rebel against.
It's a huge life-changing experience, but it can be for the better. In saying that, you'll learn to eat really good foods, you'll really look after yourself, and if you've got the support of the educators, your endocrinologist, your doctor, your family, your friends.
I think as a community we need to make sure that we're there for each other. Our doctors and our nurses will always be there for us no matter what, but I think it's the one-on-one relationships you have with other families that will help you get through the tough times.
Having diabetes is it's a lifetime thing. It's a lifelong thing, and it's not easy, but you can live with it. And I believe having family and friends as support is just the main thing to get you through. Every day can be different, and if you learn to accept it, you can learn to live with it, and you can get on with things. I went on to have 2 more kids after that, so having diabetes doesn't stop you from having healthy children.
Max is 16 now, and I guess he's reached middle adolescence and going towards late adolescence, so the things that are important to him are independence and love outside of the family and finding a positive self-identity. So I guess as a mother I try to work with that and give him that as much freedom as I'm able to comfortably give for him to experience, you know, a normal adolescence, so that diabetes doesn't disrupt a natural process.
Well, my feeling now is that I'm just living a normal life. Diabetes is not ruling my life, I'm ruling diabetes with my life. Whereas when I was first diagnosed, diabetes ruled my life, if that makes any sense. It's more acceptance now than sort of trying to fight it. And the biggest tip I can give is don't fight it, work with it.
We hope you found inspiration in these stories and that it allows you to, as Max said, not let diabetes rule your life, but rather rule your diabetes with your life. Please refer to Type 1 diabetes on the CD-ROM in this package for more information. And remember, if you have any questions about your condition, talk to your healthcare professional.